What's up, guys? It's been a while. So I was on Twitter a lot of, I really want to start doing these videos again, and not just on plays, but doing them more consistently on even just like education. I'm trying to help you guys learn and answer questions and things like that. Really try to put stuff out there for you. Listen, there's obviously traders that are much better than me, but I'll just give you my 2 cents from somebody that's pretty good and has had a lot of success over the years. But a lot of you guys have asked you guys like, what is something that you would want to learn about, and pretty much everybody has said, you want to learn how to find plays, how to find something that is basically going to run and you're in before it's going to run. So we're going to try to cover that now. There's going to have to be more than one part on this, but at least we'll start with something now. So the first thing is, it's impossible to know pretty much like outside of certain outside of like news, right, or outside of like certain like high volume plays. Like recently we've had obviously everyone knows that AIXI has been a huge runner. It's been like, what did they go, like 3,000%. So actually it looks pretty good still too, but like you could tell like there was a lot of hype that was building on this. It was building really well, and it was trading with high volume, right? Like a lot of these pennies obviously trade, especially these Chinas. A lot of them will get high volume days. It doesn't necessarily mean they're all going to make a move, especially like this, or even a big move in general, right? So there's a lot that goes into it, right? Is there a catalyst? Is there not a catalyst? But for the most part, the truth is that nobody really knows like when a stock is going to run, right? Like when that exact stock is going to run. The key is to really like focus on really like what the best stocks are, which is what I try to do, which is why like a lot of the times, I may be, sometimes a week early, a month early, 2 months early, whatever the case is, a day early, depending on the market, right? But as long as you know what to look for, they pretty much, like most of the stuff that I post, for the most part, always runs. It's just a matter of when, right? And that's because like we're taking the time to find what the best plays and setups and things like that are. So anyway, we're going to get into that a little bit now. So this is what personally I do. Everyone's going to have their own criteria, but so when you guys see what it is that I'm posting, when I post a play for you, right, or if I post an alert, this is the stuff that gets done behind the scenes, so you guys know, a lot of you have been following me for a while now, so I know that, you guys trust me, but at least you guys see exactly what it is that I'm doing, and if you want to do it on yourself to learn, you could watch this video and honestly start any time, because this is exactly what I do. So this is how I start. So you go on FinViz, right? So FinViz is your, it's a screener. People use it for other things. I use it strictly for a screener. Okay, I only use this for a screener. You can, like sort by float. You could sort by shares outstanding. I think there's even a short shares available or whatnot, and this stuff is never accurate here, pretty much. The only thing it's good for is screening, finding tickers, float, short, shares outstanding, things like that. It's usually pretty much always wrong. Okay, so outside of FinViz, I have two things. So one is Ask Edgar, which I've been using more recently, and I've really been messing around with it, and I like it. But also Dilution Tracker, right? So Dilution Tracker, you just make an account. I don't even pay for it because I have Ask Edgar. But you can make a free account. It's completely free. And you'll pick, so like let's just sort this, right? I'm going to sort this now by low to high. Alright, so let's just pick a random one like, okay, past W. No. Let's do QNCX. Okay, QNCX, it says the float and shares outstanding is 48 to 55. So here it says it's 15. So this can't, somebody's wrong, actually. This is a bad example. One of them is wrong. But usually dilution tracker is always right. I always go off of my dilution tracker for everything. I go off of it for market cap, I go off of it for filings, I go off of it for float and everything, because it's without a doubt the most accurate one out there. If it's not accurate, it's because a filing came in or hasn't come in to update it, but they pretty much update right away, and you don't even need to pay for any of it. It's pretty much all free. The stuff that you don't get, that you like this, all this, like the specific details of dilution, you know, it will show premium here and stuff. You really don't need it, honestly. It's great. I'm not saying not to buy it, but in truth, more than likely you don't need to spend the money on it. I don't spend it because it just doesn't make any sense. Because in truth, all of this stuff is just like to kind of sum up the filing in a way, but in truth, all of this is pretty much answered if you actually read the filing, which I end up doing anyway. So this doesn't really serve any benefit for me most of the time. And I have a premium on Ask Edgar, so that's good. But anyway, so I go on FinViz, alright? So FinViz, I literally will sort. This is like my routine. I'll sort from low to high, alright? It's just easier for me that way. So if you hover over these tickers, you see how it shows you the chart? So I hover over the tickers. Now most of these I pretty much all know. I know pretty much most about them already, so I can do it pretty fast. But the first thing that I do is I scroll through and I look for like what's a good setup, right? So like the first thing is I don't really like playing things that aren't at bottom. If it's already up too much, I don't even look at it. So if the chart doesn't look good, I end up skipping it. A lot of these have done reverse splits this week, so this isn't, these sub 10s really aren't that great, but I go through one by one, right? And I look at the charts. So PN, for example, they just announced a reverse split, right? You have VNRX, right? I know this chart is good, but I know they have a reverse split approved. So I go through them and I look at what charts I think could be good. The other thing that I do is after I find a chart and a ticker that's nice, is I have to check to see if there's a reverse split approved, right? So I'm going to go through these. If you get bored, you can fast forward to this, but I want to make this as like organic as possible, right? So I go through one by one. CXCI, that just ran after hours. LHSW, I like LHSW because it's a nice setup, right? It's at bottom. You can pull it up here, right? We actually were just playing this the other day after hours a little bit. LHSW. I think LHSW is good, right? Now, when I say good, that doesn't mean that I think it's going to run tomorrow. I'm just trying to pick the ones that I think is a good setup to run, right? So this is a great setup. It's one of those typical China liquidations. It's a pretty thin float, right? If you look at dilution tracker here, it's a 17 million float, so that's pretty low. You could watch. This is for China. They'll say that a lot, but you really got to watch how it trades. But you pull up the chart and you're like, all right, this is a great setup, right? So you look like pretty much all-time lows in a way is like 14. It hit that back in March. Is it going to go to 14s again? Probably not. You're looking at like your support is around the 16 range, right? This is your heavy support. Is right in this 16 range. Okay? 16 would be like the bottom. 17, is probably more likely. But in this range, between 16, 17, whatever the case is, right? And I go through them one by one. And I see, okay, well, this is a good setup. This one's pretty good. I add it to a watch list, right? I look to see, is there a reverse split approved? A fast way of doing it is you can hit this reverse split part here. And then you can control F. And you can type in like VNRX. You see here they have a vote approved, right? LHSW, you see that I have, doesn't come up, it's no results found, right? So I go, okay, that's good. If it said that it was approved, I don't even bother looking into the filings, okay? Because it's just a waste of my time. I'm not going to trade anyway. So now that I see that it's a good setup and it doesn't have a reverse split approved, now I can start looking into it more, right? Like, all right, there were some 6Ks here. What were these 6Ks? Okay, so change of directors. You see that a lot with these Chinas. This was their financials, right? Like, what was their financials here? Revenues were 26.1. It represented an increase. Okay, that's pretty good. I mean, I'm just scrolling, doing quick scrolls. This looks like this was like a note agreement. Then you have this. This is the right. So on the 22nd, they canceled their extraordinary meeting, right? So you have these extraordinary meetings, right? That's what they host most of the time to call, to vote on reverse splits, okay? So that was on the 22nd. So beforehand, there probably was here we go. So here's the notice of the 2026 shareholder meeting. If you look at it, you'll see what they're voting on. And you'll see here, number A is they're voting on a share consolidation, right? Which is a reverse split. And that was on the 25th. So now what I would note is okay, well, if this was, I don't know, so let's say this filing came out March 18th, right? I'm sorry, March 10th. So I'd say, all right, well, they're voting on a reverse split March 25th. After they approve it, I'm not going to touch it anyway. Do I think it's going to run in the next 2 weeks? Like maybe, maybe not. Maybe I'll have some, but probably I'll just leave it alone for now. Because, you can't, like 2 weeks is not enough time. Listen, the stock could run tomorrow, but in the sense of like buying and, stuff like I'm going to post out, if there's a reverse split vote in a week or 2 weeks away from me posting, I'm going to tell you so that you know. A lot of times recently, like stocks have been reverse splitting and then they've been running after the reverse split, but I usually, if you're going to buy it beforehand, you could just buy it like the day before if it drops or whatever the case is. So I look for all that stuff. That's really the most important thing. Because if there's no reverse split approved, there's no compliance issues, right? Then all you have to do is play the chart and it's just a waiting game, okay? So I like doing that one by one because it keeps me fresh of like what the good tickers are. Now, depending on the size of your portfolio, obviously, you can put some money in your favorite ones, right? And, play them on your own. If you're playing with a smaller size port and you're only playing maybe 1 to 3 plays at a time, then you want to focus on like 2 things. One is, what the overall theme of the market is. So recently we've had a lot of, China's run. We've had a lot of, merger plays run, things like that. Pennies have been hot, but it's really like mergers and I'd say like China's, recently, like really over the last 3 or 4 months, a lot of these China liquidations have been making huge moves. Like Ride, this is one, right? I actually traded this alone, but this is Ride, right? Ride, 20 cents to over $1, right? CCHH, same thing. It went from 30 cents to $2, right? RPGL, they did a reverse split now, so I can't show you, but this was a big one. It ran, this was before the reverse split, it ran from like 30 or 40 to like $2. There's been a bunch of them. DKI, right? That just ran again. The other day, it went from 30 cents to $1.30. It went again 30 to $2. I remember we were in this one early. Lynx was another one we were in early. It's like a lot of these. That's AGRZ. That was another one we were in early, right? Like, so a lot of these. Did I think they were going to go to $1? No, but or did I know they were going to go to $1? No, I have no idea what they're going to go to. But I know that AGRZ, when I was in it, it was a great setup, right? It's at bottom. I know that they have no reverse split approved. I know that there's no compliance issues. So it's really just, if you look at the float, I think it's like under 10 million. I'm sorry, it's 12 million. So you look at the float and you're like, all right, this is pretty cheap at 30 cents. Like, it's got to run eventually, for sure. Like, someone's going to come for it. You know, you look at the chart and it's like, all right, really, you have, you know, your support here, like the low 30s, mid 30s. I'm sorry, like mid to high 30s, and you have your resistance here, really at, like, this is before it ran, but you have your resistance here at like 45-ish, and over that it kind of opens up to the 60s. So I knew that at some point it's gonna break this. Right now, this ended up coming into a theme day, which helped. But that's the same thing, like even like FMFC, right? Like you guys know FMFC, right? We've been trained this multiple times. But the thing I like the most about FMFC is you notice. I'll just use AGRZ for an example, right? A cupper is another one. This actually just ran. There's another one we went in on early. That one just from 30 to $1, pretty much. It hit, what did it hit? 95. All right, so it went to $1, right? But if you look at these 4 hours, right, you go on, let's just say FMFC. The reason I liked FMFC so much is because you go back to here, this was Christmas Eve. Look at the amount of times it's had moves, right? So for me, I like tickers that, you know, you guys remember the PCSAs, the DHAIs. I like the tickers that that run, because more than likely the market comes back to them and runs it again, right? So when there's a stock that runs randomly or whatever the case is, you always want to keep an eye on it, because more than likely they're going to come back to it. Okay, so I saw it, like, looking, you know, when it ran the first time, I was like, all right, well, they just ran it again. You know, they got to try it again, because they just squeezed it, you know, from, you know, 30 to, they squeezed 110%, right? Then they squeeze it again, 50%. Then it comes back down, they squeeze it again, 90%. Like, that's 3 runs right there. Look at the amount of times. Like, now that's a 30% move, 50%, 50%, you know, 80%, like 1, 2, I mean, you're talking 10 times. It's paid, literally. You know what I mean? Like, you don't get that often on tickers like this. If you look at AGRZ ran, and it ran big once, and it made like a little decent move here, like a 30 to 40% move here. But outside of that, it doesn't. That's really it. It hasn't moved. You know what I mean? Like, it's not a ticker where, like, the market's gonna come to it, more than likely. Like, you can't rely on the market coming to it so often, because it seems like, you know, it kind of is. It's just not a favorite, right? That doesn't mean it's not gonna run again. I'm sure it's gonna run again, but it's not something where, like, I'm willing to just go heavy in this unless it's in a theme, because, you know, it doesn't have the history of multiple runs, right? Whereas you look at, like, Cupper, just in the last week, Cupper's ran 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times, right? It's ran more than AGRZ just since the beginning of March, right? And so, do I think they're going to come to Cupper again? Of course they're going to come to Cupper again. Why wouldn't they? You know, why wouldn't it run again? 1, 2, 3. See how the runs are getting more frequent? Now it ran big. Like, normally it's just a pop and a dump, pop and a dump, pop and a dump. But now it actually ran on huge volume. You see the big volume here? So it ran on huge volumes, because it's going to take more time to cool off. It's going to cool off, and then it'll probably run again, right? So these are the things that I look at when we're doing things like this. And you go through, and the trick is, when you do this over and over again, you start to be able to catch, like, all right, if I look at the daily, I look at Cupper, right? You watch the level 2, you're watching how it trades, you see how thin it is, and you start to you start to build the intuition of, this one's good, this will run, this is really thin, like, this is for sure, this one is for sure going to run again. And you just go through and you look at each one, right? You have theme plays, you have merger plays that have happened, right? You've had, Ugrow was a post split, that one were big. We had QNCX, right? QNCX is a merger, right? It's also a penny. QNCX went, like 400%. You had, what else? You had SOAR, that's another one that's running, right? That's up 100% almost from lows, right? SBEV is another merger that we posted out the other day. Now that has had multiple runs, right? That's why I posted SBEV the other day. I wasn't first, but we did try it the other day. We got a nice 45% move out of it, right, from bottom. And I look through each one, and that's basically what I'm doing. So when you guys say like, how do I know which one's gonna run next? I have no idea, guys. Like, that's just the truth. I'm not gonna lie to you. There's no way to know what stock's gonna run. Do I know what stock under $1 is gonna run tomorrow? No. I mean, I have an idea of like what I think could run. You could base it off Friday, right? Like what's had volume, what people are talking about, what has eyes on it. But you won't know until the market opens or pre-market on Monday. I don't know right now what's gonna happen. But I go through and I like looking at seeing which ones at least have the setup in the sense of like what are good. The biggest thing is you guys want to start learning is you want to start being able to look and see if a stock has a reverse split approved. It's so easy. There's no reason not to know, right? If it's a U.S. company, usually if it's not a U.S. company, it's like a China. They PR their minimum bid deficiencies, which is their compliance, right? So you see here, A Jersey has until 8/17 for compliance, and that's for the price being under $1, and they'll probably get an extension too after that. Sorry, I'm just getting over being sick. The other thing is, so when you look at these filings on these Chinas or foreigns, right? Malaysia, China, whatever the case is, if you open their, usually like their 20F, right, it usually says like here, like where the company's incorporated, right? So you see here it says Cayman Islands, okay? So Cayman Island stocks have to vote to do a reverse split. So you notice how like on LHSW, let me pull that up. LHSW here is Cayman Islands. They voted to do the reverse split. Now they ended up canceling it. So LHSW does not have a reverse split approved. They canceled it, which is very nice. But it's good to know, like when I talk about FMFC, right? I'm just gonna use FMFC for an example. I like it because it's a low float. It moves all the time. They have no compliance issues. Their minimum bid here was until I don't know, it doesn't even say what the day is. Well, it's 180 days from here, which is, June, and then they could get another 180 days. But they're also Cayman Islands, right? So they have to vote to do a reverse split. So you don't have to worry about, like, waking up the next day and, they could do a reverse split because they didn't have to vote. There's companies like, I think this is one, Mimi. This is a British Virgin Island, right? BVI. So British Virgin Island companies don't need to vote to do a reverse split. They can technically do them at any time. They could just announce a reverse split. So usually Mask was one we've played, but this is a BVI company. Usually, it's hard to say, like, because there are setups where, you look at one and you go, all right, this is really good, but it's BVI. All right, well, maybe you play it, but you play it a little smaller if you're going to hold it. Or you just skip it entirely. It's totally up to you. You have to realize that everybody's risk tolerance is different, right? If I'm playing with $1 million and you're playing with, $1,000, well, my risk tolerance may be a lot different than yours, right? I may be able to just keep money in a stock, and if they announce a reverse split, I don't care, right? But I try to at least not post things like that, because I don't want you guys screwed. I know a lot of times you guys, a lot of you work, obviously, full-time jobs. But at least, like, these are little things that you can do to be able to at least protect yourself in the sense of, looking at a stock and saying, okay, where should I buy it, right? Looking at a stock and saying, all right, is there a reverse split approved, right? Like, who just announced a reverse split, actually? Who was one that just did? Who just announced a reverse split on over the weekend on Friday? There was a few of them. Let's actually look right here. Does it show upcoming? Usually it shows upcoming, right? Okay, so like here, Lex H, right? So Lex H announces plan to implement ADS ratio change. Okay, so Lex H, I'm not sure off the top of my head, is a Cayman Island company. So they must have voted on this reverse split at some point, right? Let me just scroll out. Nope. More than likely, they had to have had a. Here we go. This is where they approved the reverse split. They have to have approved the reverse split. Unless this is an ADS change. ADS is a little different actually, but point being is so that you don't have to get screwed getting hit by one of these, right? Like TDTH was another one. They announced a reverse split. Actually, they just announced a reverse split. I'm sure they probably approved one in the past. Here we go. Say divided into each, and they are being able to basically be consolidated right here. So you know if the ticker has a reverse split approved. So if you're looking to see if if you look at their compliance, right? You look at their compliance and you say, all right, they have TDTH has until April, the end of April for compliance, and they have a reverse split approved. It's one that you're probably like, you know what, I'm going to stay away from that because anytime they could do it, and if it's after hours, you're screwed and it drops 30% instantly. So this is like the real basics of what I do to really look at stuff. I can go more in depth. It's just honestly, it's hours and hours, and I can just keep rambling. But I wanted to at least give you guys like a really simple idea of what it is that I'm doing, right? Like there are multiple good plays out there, but then it comes into battling of why do I like this one better than this, right? If I look at this page, Gipper, this one has ran, this one's pretty good. CLDI, they have upcoming data this week. It's a nice gap on the chart. This one's pretty good. IVDA, I still think this one's pretty good. OTLK, this one's been moving. V, I don't like V. They always dilute. It's a crappy ticker. MGN, this one was running. BRTX, this has a good setup. TOVX, they have a reverse split approved, right? Like, I pretty much know all these already. You see here, TOVX, let me just do it, sorry. Pretty sure I'm sorry, they're voting on a reverse split. I know they adjourned it. But, it's good to be able to look through and see which the best ones are, right? Like AZTR. AZTR, this is just not my kind of setup. Like that you see how how much room there is down. I like posting stuff like this is another one. TOVX, I don't really like this setup. ATCH, I don't like this setup. I don't like how far it is off bottom. It's just more risk. For stuff like that, I'm not really interested in that stuff. So when I go through, I just look and then I make a watch list. And I see, all right, this one's like PMNT. They have a reverse split approved. It's a good ticker. I like it. But they have a reverse split approved. It's not going to show it, but I know for a fact they voted on it. Back in here. To approve a reverse stock split, and that was on the 14th. Now it may not show it because they didn't submit the votes, which is why it's not showing that it's approved. But I knew from looking that they approved one. So for me, like PMNT, I really like this one. It moves thin. It's probably going to run again. But like, am I comfortable swinging this all the time and posting this? Not really. I did that one time because it was like a quick bounce play, but they reverse split approved. So the truth is that I have no idea when they're going to put that out. So it's really easy to find this stuff. It's not hard. You just have to take a few minutes to look. Like in truth, there's no reason anyone should ever be screwed by a reverse split. At least 80% of or 90% of the time. I don't think I ever got hit, or ever have really gotten hit with a reverse split. If I have, it's very rare, because I just don't put myself in that situation. So, this week, one of the things I would be looking out for are one, merger plays, right? Like SOAR was running, right? So if SOAR is running and that's a merger play, right, and SOAR continues to run, well, I know that SBEV started to run off of it the other day. So if SOAR starts running and here's for an example, right? Like if SOAR is running, this is a merger play. It's getting pumped because it's a merger. So if SOAR starts going into the 40s and making new highs, and I look at SBEV, and SBEV is at 40 and it didn't move. Well, that's an easy way of saying, well, this is a buy, because I know they're going to come for it. It's just they're not talking about it yet because they're only focusing on SOAR. But they're both the same sort of play, and it's a pretty safe bet to say if SOAR is going to run, people are going to want to try to pump another merger play, so they're going to come after this. So it's little things like this that you have to think about when you're trying to look at trying to be one step ahead of the market. I hope this helped, guys. We're going to do more of these. I'm going to try to do them even if it's once a week or twice a week, to just put some videos out there, trade recaps, things like that. I'm just getting over being sick, so I may sound a little like shit. But let me know what you guys think about this. I hope this helped, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Have a good day. Later.